You're listening to the 4-Phase Cycle podcast with your hosts, Dr. Alex and Megan of ZESTY Ginger. If you're looking to naturally balance hormones and learn how to work with your body instead of against it, you've definitely come to the right place. As a duo of an integrative MD and a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner and best friends, we use the 4 phases of the female cycle in combination with functional lab work and mindset practices to transform the lives of the women we work with.
We also have a whole lot of fun along the way. If you're new around here, it's best to start with season 1 before jumping around and plan to roll up your sleeves. Showing up for ourselves and enjoying our lives is what good health is all about. Just a quick reminder though, this information is not intended to diagnose, manage, or treat disease. Always consult with your doctor before making changes. Hello there. Welcome to the 4-Phase Cycle podcast. This is Megan, and I am here with Alex today. We're together.
Hi.
Hello,
over
everybody. Zoom.
Yes, together in spirit.
Amazing. We are happy to have you here. We decided to have a conversation over the internet about Megan, my latest struggle. And basically what happens is when I have a struggle, I call Dr. Alex, and we talk through it and we go through the magic steps that we figured out that ended up being a part of our health transformation accelerator. So I thought, instead of having this conversation on the phone where no one can hear it, we're going to have it with you. We're going to have it here. So little backstory is my youngest daughter just recently is most likely dyslexic and struggling a bit to learn letters and numbers, and has a struggle with time. She says last her day, and everything's either, even if it was yesterday, it's tomorrow. She mixes these things up. So we love it. And it's always been fascinating. And it's starting to actually mess with school and her learning. So I went into research mode after the teacher said, let's work on this. Let's come up with a plan. And I went into my research mode. And so it got me thinking, because this is not the first time I've gone into research mode. I did the same thing when we had mold in our home and I had mold in my body. So I now have my research mode down to a science, because I follow the 7 steps that are inside of our group and inside of our process. And I make sure that the new plan for her has these 7 steps. So we're going to talk through these today and explain for you, if you're looking for, this can be any problem, any struggle you're dealing with, any program you're looking for, any process, any book even, does it have these 7 steps involved? And if not, can you add them, or can you get some support somewhere else? Or can you just make sure that these are all considered? So that's what we're going to do today. And I just want to make sure you all are aware, because it's coming up really quickly. Next week, we're actually starting our Health Transformation Accelerator. We open doors just twice a year for this 12-week group, and we are starting very soon. So it's not open to join, and we would love for you to jump on the wait list until it is open next week. So zestyginger.com/transform. The link will also be in the show notes to make sure you are on the wait list and get notified as soon as doors are open. And this process, as you'll hear today, it can be used for something like finding out what process and program you're going to use for your daughter's dyslexia, right? This program, we work with women, adults who are wanting to improve their health, optimize their hormones, who either have a struggle currently or really just want to optimize their body and be a badass. We work with women now more and more who are entrepreneurs and have big things that they want to happen in the world. And they know that there's more to what they're doing. They know that if their brain were operating more effectively, they know if they're really clear on their goals, they know if their brain chemistry was on point, that they would be doing even more. So we work with the whole gamut. And we are happy to answer any questions. Please feel free to email us, support@zestyginger.com. Come find us on Instagram. You know where we are. So please bring your questions. Cool. So let's get into the topic. Sounds good, Dr. Alex?
Yeah, definitely. So excited for this next round of HTA. We have such an amazing group of women that are in the family already. So you can stick around after your first round to keep doing more rounds of these 7 steps. And the community that we have already from the rounds that we've done so far is amazing. So if you want to hang out with us, that's one thing, but honestly, hanging out with a group of really motivated, powerful, peaceful minded women is next level. So definitely we're getting so excited about that. All right,
agree.
Meg.
Every round they get better and better, and the up level, and then we are stretched, they stretch us, we are stretched, and we are always changing and improving. As you'll see, was us going through the 7 steps today. This is a process. We learn something and then we'll implement it in our group. So Mama Bear has gone into research mode over her 6-year-old, right? You better believe everything I research and learn will be put into a structure, will be put on a page for other moms. It will also somehow magically apply to what we do, right? Because there's always a metaphor in this. And as we learn, we share. It happens to be especially fun when we're sharing in the middle of it. So right now I am just fresh out of the research phase. And Dr. Alex and I were joking about how I used to take research phase. I used to extend it, we'll say. I would go into research phase for many, many months, and that might be appropriate for some of you. It might be appropriate for what you have going on. Often it was well beyond the appropriate timeline. There was a bit of, if I pick one thing and that doesn't work, then what's that going to mean? What's that going to mean about me? What do I even really want? There were all these underlying things going on, which is what happened with the mold detox in the home. I was jumping from one thing to another. I'm like, well, what if I miss something? Well, what if there's another expert? And I was in the gathering information mode for way too long. And it was driving me absolutely nuts.
Actually, Meg, before we go too much further, how did you know that was a problem? Like, what were the clues? What is someone feeling, seeing, hearing themselves think that sets off the alarm bells of like, you're well past this is helpful research and into spinning your wheels and overthinking?
That's a great point. It was a feeling of dread and a feeling of never ending. I don't know enough. There must be more. It became the habit of researching, and the habit of feeling overwhelmed was ingraining itself in that. If I started to feel at peace, like, okay, I have a plan, I'm going to do the sauna and take the things and do the plan, which the amazing experts, right? It wasn't like there was a lack of experts either. I had great humans and doctors at my fingertips. So it was almost like as soon as I would start to feel like, okay, just do that, my brain would kick in with this little feeling of like, but what if there's something else? And that would lead into overwhelm, anxious thoughts. And then that would lead back to Google MD and the interwebs and more research. So I think, especially knowing that I was talking to some of the best people, and even if you're not, also knowing that what we teach is that there is no one way to get to something, right? We think, oh, there must be this one magical way. And you'll talk to one person, they took one path and you took another and you both got somewhere. So I think I knew that more research was not actually adding, it was starting to lead to depression and depressive thoughts. So that's when I was like, okay, time out. We got to have an actual boundary, to the point that I wrote a reminder on my phone that came up every single day that said, let it go. I actually had to tell my body and brain, we're not doing that anymore. You're going to follow the plan you have, and you're going to fully trust in the plan that you have and go all in and go forward. And that was a turning point for me, where I got better really quickly after that. So that's a part of our process. That's a part of our plan. We've seen this play out many times with people who come to us who have done a protocol for something. We've had somebody who's done protocols for very complicated issues and autoimmune and all that, and come into our program, and actually you can see like the weight coming off their shoulders. You can see them being like, okay, I am here. I am willing to fully trust in this process. I'm going to stop all the craziness. And that doesn't mean stop what you're doing as far as maybe eating or taking a supplement or doing the sauna. I kept doing the things. It's just the jumping from thing to thing. And you can see what happens when somebody just leans into one way and really fully believes in. That's kind of where the magic is.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Cause I think that that's a common question of like, information's good and empowering, and when does it cross over? So yeah, it's helpful to think through, there's the emotional drive. I feel that too. Like I feel it in my chest. It's kind of like a little motor that says like, if you try a little harder, if you do a little more, it'll be better. And that voice, the other thing that I have noticed in that stage for myself is that that voice transcends all problems, right? Because that voice goes off when I'm not, my moods aren't that great. Maybe I'm behaving in ways that I don't love so much and I'm not most proud of, right? It's not most in alignment for me. And that same voice comes up with the, will that goal ever be reached? And so once you start paying attention to it, and once you start noticing that it's across the board, well, then it's not really unique to that problem, right? It allows you to be like, hey, this is a pattern for me. Now, that doesn't mean that it's like, oh, it's all in my head, I sweep it under the rug, because that's why we have the 7 steps. If it worked to sweep it under the rug, you betcha we'd all be doing that. Unfortunately, we got to go unsweep it and clean all the stuff up. So it's not a reason to continue being like, well, now I'm going to add the guilt and shame of, well, I shouldn't even be doing that. So we're stopping that whole thing, but it does sound like it's the common feeling and thoughts under it all just feeding into this problem, and it makes us feel better to go pretend like we're doing something about it. Go click and go scroll and go read, and sometimes we're not even really paying attention, right? It's more just that motor is the driver to go and yeah. It burns out after a while, that's for sure.
And tapping into your intuition, right? Dr. Alex taught a class to our HTA family members about understanding your intuition, because over time, when you've gone through these patterns, then you know how you work. And for example, one of the things we've added to our health transformation accelerator is human design. We have an expert come in twice to teach, and then twice for Q&A, so people can individually figure out how they make decisions and how they know what the next step is. And while I wouldn't necessarily say human design is, you don't need it per se to get to where you're wanting to go or have great health, although it's kind of like, why would you not use it? Because it's so magical for yourself. When you understand how you make those decisions and you start operating like that, you'll realize things flow a lot easier. So we were joking around. I said, I really cut my research mode on this topic with my daughter down to probably a day, maybe a weekend of just, okay, here's the things I do, here's how I do it. And then I know my human design is I sleep on it, I wait, I ride my wave, and then I'm all in. And then once I'm in the all in and I go for it, I do not look back. And every time I've done that, that has gone incredibly well. When I look back, when I didn't do that with the mold in the home, which of course there's a lot going on there with your brain, and when I did look back, and that is when I got into a really, really messy place, and it was not fun. So now I know. We're always encouraging the women we work with to start looking, what are the patterns, what worked, what didn't work, right? So success leaves clues, which is the very first step for when we're trying to solve anything. So this, for example, with my daughter, went into research mode. I'm like, okay, here we go. Dyslexia. Let's look this up. The very first thing I did was I reached out to friends, family, internet, people I know who have dealt with this and been successful. I want to really emphasize and been successful. So not your friend that you know that's still struggling with X that you're also struggling with. That can be nice to be together on a path and recognize that there's somebody who's been through it and on the other side and can look back, just like Dr. Alex and I are doing in this program, looking back and going, oh, that thing that took us 10 years and a lot of pain to learn and a lot of struggle. Here's your 7 steps. You're welcome, right? Like we're breaking it down. So you can do this in every area. Find somebody who's done or does or studies specifically what you're looking for. So I knew some people who had been through this specifically. I also knew I had some amazing resources such as Pam, who worked, it used to be called Neurogistics. Now the company is M2. So this is the neurotransmitter testing company that we use inside of Health Transformation Accelerator. Every person has the option of testing their brain chemistry. And this is who we use. And she's been fabulous. She does the sessions. Everybody gets a one-on-one session to go over their individualized results. And she personally has been doing them. I don't know how long she will continue, but everyone's like, oh, Pam was amazing. So I said, okay, who do I know? Pam, she actually has, and has, her passion is working with children. She has a whole program just for children. You can test their brain chemistry. She deals with ADD, ADHD, autism, all different kind of learning disabilities. And I said, well, let's see what Pam has to say about dyslexia. Why would I not? She's seen thousands of children's scans with brain chemistry. And of course, she had some fabulous information. She had a book she immediately recommended, and I don't know the title off the top of my head, so I can put that in the show notes or just reach out. Eventually, I'm sure I will have a page on all my children research once I have some results, right? Right now, I'm in the middle of it. So again, I'm in the middle of it. And I'm going to just share this time as I go because Dr. Alex and I thought this process would be helpful. So go ahead.
Let me jump in for 1 second. I think as part of that, I remember in the beginning, and I think this feeds into the research, like the research gets cut down kind of automatically over time as you stick with it. Cause I remember being like, well, part of this struggle is that I keep not finding providers that are giving me I keep getting told that my labs are normal and all of that stuff. There's a couple things there. One is that if you're not finding the people, you have to keep going and changing your strategy of like where you're looking, how you're thinking about it, which will lead you to other people thinking that way, right? That's part of the exploration. There's that you just have to show up for, right? If you haven't found the people, then you're not done. So that's part of the strategy. Now, as you build out your team and you have your people, like for Megan, over time, that gets faster and faster because as you start leaning on your team and those resources, they'll lead you to other ones further down the line, and that will open up new doors. So there's 2 things there. One, we don't need to shame ourselves for where we're at because some of what Megan did in the past actually made it so that she could do that now and have it be faster. The other thing is that you still had to really show up for that and be persistent. And I think that's because most of us what we grew up with was, here's insurance, you have these choices for who to go to. And then we generally play in that pool, right? We're like, well, even if we don't like this provider, we'll find another one, and it's still in the same circle. So that it's an invitation to be like, if you're not generally liking what you're seeing, branch out to do the exploration stage, not because you're going to hang your hat on everything that you find, but some of that exploration stage may lead you outside of your usual box that will put you on the right path. And again, that is persistence. That this part you can't necessarily like get around.
Thank you for bringing that up. I'm only able to shorten that research because of the years of research and understanding. So once it tips into this space of just never thinking you'll find the right thing, right? That's different than just literally having not yet found somebody that's even considering all parts of being human, not just a physical lab.
And you'll know that by what you were describing in the past, right? When you're truly on the in the exploration of new, like when you and I discovered Pam, right? Like we knew we were onto something because the stuff that she was saying resonated. We fell into that and knew and recognized her as a resource. It wasn't, here's information and now it's adding more stress and I feel more contracted and I feel more powerless, right? You feel which direction you're heading, and that's the information to use, because no one else can say what is that line, right? In the past, Megan would have been like, well, I just don't know who to go to, like there's no way I can get around that. But she was empowered by the exploration, and that was the difference.
Right. And in this case, Pam immediately was able to tell me at M2 that she's seen lots of patterns that are common with children or people with dyslexia in the brain chemistry. So why not also support that? So I have ordered her a panel and we'll go ahead and do that. And she said, I know you're already aware of eating well and hydrating and that kind of thing. So there's some basics there that maybe another family would get a lot out of some testing to even just understand how basic things like nutrients and sleep and hydration are affecting your child's brain chemistry. So there's layers of this depending on how far you are down the structure. And I got me realizing, as I was just kind of working through this naturally, I was like, oh, I'm going through the 7 steps. I'm like, okay, brain chemistry for my child, check, right? Like I was starting to automatically go through some of our steps. And I think the next one, Alex, I want to talk about a clear goal, because I think this is one where a lot of people get hung up, and definitely where I got hung up with my mold journey is the question, the simplest question is what do you want? Right? Many of us are like, I was like, I don't want these mold symptoms anymore. I don't want these rashes. I don't want this brain fog. I don't want to deal with this forever, right? I don't want.
Well, and it was all just the part of you that was dealing with the mold, but it didn't have anything to do with the rest of you.
Yes.
It was just a Megan moldy goal.
Yes. Right.
We met that identity part.
I was not integrated
No.
at all. Yeah. And so this same topic came up with my daughter of, okay, well, what do we want? Because I immediately had some feelings as I was watching some videos about what dyslexia is and the role of genetics. And I'm looking through this from having a background in functional medicine, and I'm looking through, and the videos I were watching were definitely from the 80s or 90s because their outfits, and it was fabulous information. And I'm like, okay, what information do I want to take in, and what do I want to, is this still true? Is this true? Is this the latest? And kind of bring in the parts that made sense for my family, and not the ones that didn't. So one of the things I was battling with, and I wanted to talk about here with Dr. Alex, is the idea of an identity. So my biggest concern for my daughter is honestly not that she reads and writes. I mean, that'll be cool, and I know she'll do that. It's just that I want her, well, I started with, I do not want her to think she's dumb. I do not want her to think she's different than other kids. I do not want her to take on the identity of, I can't do this, school is hard, school sucks, whatever will come up around having a harder time learning. And one of the things that it was Barton reading, I forget the woman's first name, Susan, I think Susan Barton, was talking about how it is very important, her opinion, very important to tell the child what's going on, to tell them that they have a different way of learning, and to make it known, because she said in families where, what are the things we don't talk about? Like Uncle Johnny's drinking, right? We don't talk about things that are because they're shameful, and not to have not want a child to think like, oh, we're not going to talk about the fact that you learn differently because it's shameful. And so I was kind of battling with this. Well, I don't want her to take it on as identity. What if what if I just didn't tell her and she just does operates, right? And then the other part of me is like, well, what if she is actually realizing she's different and it's not talked about? Like, what would that do to her? So Dr. Alex and I were just talking about this from a general standpoint of this happens all the time, right? With just people when they're dealing with health concerns, like taking it on as an identity versus recognizing, yeah, right now I have some limitations around because of what my physical body is doing.
Oh yeah, that I think this is such an important conversation because even though, that we're using a kid example, at the same, I was on the phone with someone who is joining a health transformation accelerator, and she was sharing her concerns about, she has some health issues that impact some of her like senses, right? And so it's a potentially concerning thing to have the thought of like, as I go in life, will I lose components of senses? And she was saying that that's something that she's been sitting with and has come to have some sort of acceptance around, and was having a conversation with her partner about being like, well, why even think about it, because you're kind of like bringing it in, right? Yeah, that's where your focus is. And it made me think this exact same thing, because it was such an important transition that we had as a society to initially even have this conversation, to say like, our beliefs about our identity matter because they become instructions to the brain. And that concept sounds really clean and like good. And at the same time, there's kind of the experience of living it. And that's where things get a little bit more complicated, like what you're bringing up, Megan, of like, well, if you're told, oh, your identity is hunky-dory, and then you go out and your brain is seeing evidence of you being different. I mean, I do think that that ends up being the equivalent of being like, Megan, you don't have fair skin, like just go out in the sun. And you're like, but I'm a redhead and I have really pale skin and I need sunblock. You know what I mean? Like, you don't, it's only because no one ever made you feel bad about it because you're supposed to wear sunscreen. But really, in the grand scheme of things, that's no different. You're just acknowledging how things are right now. And if that were to change, you'd have to acknowledge it again, because you probably wouldn't have a choice. You know what I mean? Like, you just, if you all of a sudden got tanner, there'd be some issues. But I guess that's where the metaphor breaks down. But it really is, I think that's a sweeping under the rug move. And here's what I think it really matters, is that when we reinforce an identity that negates an actual experience that we're having, is that if you are negating it, then you can't have solutions to it. Right? It's like being like, I don't have trauma. Like, it'll be fine. I'll be fine. I'm just like everyone else, right? And you kind of close your eyes to it. Well, then how are you going to get support? How are you going to get what you need? What's your toolkit? Like, what do you have going on for that supports who you are and what you're experiencing? You don't, because you're not even asking the question. You're saying, how can I shut this out? As opposed to being like, if I acknowledge what's happening and own the emotions and the thoughts around it, for example, you would deal with any outflow of like, I feel different, right? Like, she may feel different. I mean, heck, I feel different. Like, it's not a unique thing to kids, right? And so when you start acknowledging the things, the problems, I'm doing quotation marks, the problems that come up, like, I feel different, then you're like, that's an emotion. That's is it rejection? Is it abandonment? Is it shame, right? What's the actual thing going on? And as you know from being listening to the podcast with Megan and I, is that there's things to do about it. There's processes for emotions. There's quantum time technique, there's all sorts of stuff that you can do about feeling that way, thinking that way. But if you don't even talk about it, or if you don't even look at it, or if you try to overlay some sort of like rainbow fairy picture over it, then you're stuck. Then you really can't do anything about it, because you're never going to find answers. And that really, I think, is where the identity piece has to be unified, right? It's acknowledging all of you. Paige has unlimited potential, and right now she's dealing with this thing that her brain is doing.
Right. And really switching that goal. I wrote down specifically, what do I want for her? Because there's my goal for her, and then there's her goal, of course, that she'll come up with as she grows up. And one of the things that was really nailed home to us in our NLP training is the idea that you can only help a client and or a family member or someone you're attempting to support. They can only go so far as you believe they can go. So if you do not believe you can help someone get better, then the suggestion is to refer them out, because your level of belief can stop their progress. And so I really sat down with this and said, okay, what do I believe around this for my daughter? Because I want to believe it's unlimited. I want her to have everything she ever wants. I want to believe that it can be easy, or believe that it's the way it's supposed to be. It's whatever it is. But for me, it comes down to, I want her to feel empowered, even if she has to learn in a different way, fine. I just want her to feel empowered and supported and seen. If things are hard or different, I want her to believe, cool, she can do it. Mm-hmm. And Alex, you had mentioned that something really powerful is to focus on like accounts and things that are supporting, like, oh, here's some cool things about dyslexia. Is when I was reading the common traits of people with dyslexia, I saw a bunch of things, and one of them was like amazing intuition. And I was like, there we go. That's all I needed to hear. Like, if I had to choose between amazing intuition and being able to easily read out loud, or something that right now that she may be struggling with in the long term, as long as she has the tools to work through like the social part of it, and just to work through the part of it that to me would be damaging is like the belief, like, I'm not like other kids, I'm dumb, or something that might be taken on from her interpretation. Knowing we have those tools, I'm like, cool, I'd take amazing intuition over that any day with the tools. So a little reframe there, especially for the parent, so that you can feel really good about it.
And what would, let's contrast that to what we would have done in the past, or what we did do in the past. And what most people do is, you hear set a clear goal, and like my sister has experienced dyslexia. How's that for phrasing? And my mom, bless her heart, she doesn't focus on this stuff, but her approach was like, set a goal was setting the goal to have my sister meet certain metrics, or smaller goals would be outcomes that happen in the world, like you sit and read for 30 minutes, right? It's the doing. And so we'll talk about habits here, because habits are part of the 7-step process, right? Our habits are a natural extension of this part, which is the identity of who we are, right? And so when we set the external goal of like read a certain number of pages, it fails to address everything else that Megan just brought up. Because for Paige to feel empowered and to feel like she has the tools, that can include reading the pages or doing whatever it is that you want to do with it. But flipping it doesn't include all the other stuff, and leaves on the table, especially for someone who's, for kids whose subconscious mind is still developing, leaves all of that as potentially unsupported. And because we're all just kind of big kids, in my opinion. The same is true for us. So as you're listening to this, really ask, like, what goals have you been setting and what are you expecting yourself to do? And then compare. Do you really have congruency in the identity level that's then manifesting the outcomes rather than flipping it and then trying to like backtrack your way into the rest of your life? It doesn't work so hot.
Yeah, that's a really great point. The habit piece will become just an extension of that identity, like you said. So getting really clear on this goal part can help you figure out, like, what are those habits that are going to be supportive for her? What, for us, we found a very specific reading program that we're going to use, or whatever that is. Once you get really clear on what your goal is, then that can line up. Otherwise, if the goal was just like, I want her to be able to read out loud, whatever, then the habits or the actual action might look very different. And luckily for Paigey,
yeah, Meg don't play. Yeah, and actually that's a really great, because think about how much that opens up your options for the actions to take. For example, if her identity is, this is a way that my brain is, and some of it means that I need support for learning. And some of it means that I actually have superpowers like my intuition, my spatial reasoning, my 3D construct ability in my mind. All of that stuff is happens with dyslexia. And so if the identity is, well, there's trade-offs and there's some things that are cool and there are some things, then you actually get to take action on the cool stuff of the identity as well, right? So if it's kind of known in the Rand family of like, hey, there's an intuitive hit to get, like, what's Paigey's call? And then everyone does it because, you know, it's like, we trust Paigey, right? We trust her intuition. That's her superpower. Like, she says, we're going to this place, we'll go to that place. And which is because she's powerful, that's what happens anyways. She's a little manifesting queen. And but you know, that kind of stuff, and I'm just using that, but it can be anything, right? You can turn it into the goodness of the identity too, and habitualize that stuff. And then it's not all just drudgery, right? There's not this brain association to, here's, like, for what my sister had, right? It's, here's a problem and now I have to go sit with mom and like do this thing I don't like so much, right? It becomes a conditioned negative thing. And at least in our family for a while, there was a lot of like, it wasn't a peaceful topic, right? And so we did workarounds like audiobooks and things like that, like because I wanted to be like, well, I'm not participating in the dynamic, right? I'm going to decide. So it would be like, here's audiobooks, let's, you know, we had a whole little system with reading books, and she had basically the pizza party thing that we all had in the in the 90s. I did that. But and with audiobooks. But in any case, to avoid that, when you focus on identity, it sidesteps that in a way that anticipates those issues coming up, and you can really reinforce all the fun stuff as well.
I love it.
Yeah.
So obviously we're not going to be able to go through all of our 7 steps today. We wanted you to see how we think through this generally. Taking the physical body into account is one of parasympathetic. Getting in state is one of our steps. And for us, that's just basic, you know, optimal clean food for her, movement. She knows how to use her physical body to get empowered. And then taking action and following up with a habit. That's something that we are still working through this week. For those of you who are hearing this when it goes live, it's not too late to join us for our habit challenge, because there are some replays if you missed the first 2. So basically, bring your problem, bring whatever you're working on, bring whatever you're wanting to upgrade. So for this, there would be certain habits that we would help Paigey create, or help me as the mom create around this topic. Habits are then what become what you create in your life, right? They become your daily thing, and then they become automatic, and then it becomes even more part of your identity. So we go to the identity level first, so the habits become smooth and easy, and we'll explain all of that in our challenge. So come check that out.
Definitely. And actually day 4, we'll go through the 7 steps in more detail, but do you want to just read through them just so they kind of are left with the framework? And then
I'm going to mess up that order.
Yeah. So it's physical body stuff, that calming yourself down, calming the body down, taking care of the state, right? Then getting clear on the goal, clearing out the gunky stuff, then reinstalling the new stuff that you want instead.
So we get, what are those old beliefs? So I'm working on dropping any old beliefs that, this will be a lifetime struggle for her, or anything around that, clearing out the old, inputting the new, rewiring the brain. That's a step that a lot of programs are not taking into consideration. Yeah. And we put a lot of focus in Health Transformation Accelerator on rewiring. What do you want? We have a whole process for that.
That's the way to make it faster, because it happens anyways over time with repetition. But I would not, I love our journey, but I would not sign up again to do the whole 15 years again to figure it out like that. So expedited is better for me. Thanks.
Good point.
It works.
Got the beliefs, brain chemistry. Yeah. Say that one.
Yeah, brain chemistry next. And then the habits. Most people start with that. And that's why I thought it was important to go through. Now you see where it falls out in the chain. It's really towards the end. So if you are monkeying around with all the things that you're doing and not the identity, definitely don't miss the challenge. You can still participate. It's through Sunday. And then up level. Yeah. Up level is one of the best steps, and also by far the scariest, but that's okay.
And maybe we can do a to be continued episode of Paige's up level. What up leveling looks like as she goes through this process.
Heck yeah, I'm really excited. This will be fun. This will be a fun when we check back in, we'll go through everything we did.
Cool. And eventually I can share all the resources once I have, again, something that worked. Then I will come back and share. This was really more for a framework of when you're looking for something for you or a family member, what to consider, all that's involved. And in our opinion, what we have found that's worked is making sure that all 7 areas are a part of it. And one thing we didn't mention, but it's just inherent in the way we work, is a support group, either an actual group of people who are gathering and or just maybe the support person. We love group programs for that reason, because people will come, they'll think they don't have a question. Someone will ask a question and they're like, oh, I didn't even know I had that question. That opened everything up for me. And, it's always, you
don't know what you don't know.
Right.
So other people are, thank goodness, our mirrors for that, and very grateful that's the case.
And a group where there is a framework, because where you can get in trouble specifically in an area like this would be me going into a dyslexia for moms group with a bunch of people complaining about how nothing is working. So watch that.
Great point.
Because again, that's why we said in the beginning, modeling somebody who's done something that has worked. And that's where a process, and that's where honestly paid programs to me are always a different vibe. You're there for a process, you're there for an expert, you're there to go because they've been through it. Whereas and you can gathering information from support groups, fabulous. And then watch when you get in there and you've been in there for a long time and all you're seeing is all the things that don't work.
Or the same question that you have.
Yes. Someone else who's been further along, ideally. Cool. Okay. Well, thank you for being here with us today. This was fun, Dr. Alex.
This was fun. We'll have to do more of these examples.
Okay, cool. Please bring any questions you have to us. You can email us, support@zestyginger.com, if you have questions about HTA, because we do only open up twice a year, and it's happening next week, or we're going to be open to join just for 4 days. You'll have the opportunity. We have people then stick around and become HTA family. We love our family. They stay. We support them for a whole year. This is a process that you can do over and over and over again in different areas of your life. You come with a new goal, you up level, you're a new person by the end, so then you shift to something else. It's a really, really cool and empowering process. Just like, I was like, hey, cool, I'll apply this to my daughter, right? This is a totally different way of thinking than most. And we found it to just be incredibly empowering so that we're not just feeling or running on the hamster wheel with no answers.
Yeah. Awesome. Oh, and stay tuned on Monday, because when cart opens, there's going to be some really epic bonuses, including spending some time with us. So definitely make sure to be ready to go next Monday. Keep an eye out and everything, because you don't want to miss that stuff.
Great point. Great point. If you want immediate access, walkie-talkie like coaching with me, if you want a huge breakthrough session, there's all sorts of cool bonuses. So
yeah,
audio from
do
Dr.
it.
Alex. Okay.
Exactly.
Have a fabulous day, everybody. Thanks for coming out to hang with us on the podcast. It is our goal to transform the way women are treated in healthcare, and we need your help. We need your help to get the word out. We have a lofty goal of 1 million downloads, and we know that as this podcast grows, we're going to be able to reach more women, get more amazing speakers for you, and bring the most cutting-edge information.
If you found these podclasses helpful, please take a moment to text 5 women you know the link to the series. We appreciate your help so much. Can't wait to see you next time.